So I'm 50. Rob just turned 52. Not 52. Rob turned 50 as well. So both of us turned 50 this year. So I have the old eyes and I have the written remarks because I can no longer do things off the top of my head. So sorry about that. But these are the waters, people. So let's see. I was on the founding board. I've been curriculum director. I've been a teacher with my husband Patrick's been a teacher. We've had 4 kids graduate from St. Ambrose. And then we have 2 kids who are currently students. We have Stephen, who's a sophomore, and Catherine, who's a 7th grader. So I've been intimately connected with the school from the beginning. So the parents who founded St. Ambrose 10 years ago, we had sort of run the gamut of educational options. We'd tried parochial schooling, homeschooling, and public schooling. But as our children moved into their teenage years, we shared a growing conviction that what we really wanted for our kids simply didn't exist in Madison, Wisconsin. We shared one hope for an intellectually invigorating environment where our children could grow in wisdom and knowledge in the context of their Catholic faith, in the company of those who wanted the same thing. So we formed a board of experts in the law, in business, in education. We wrote bylaws. We found a building. We hired a faculty with excellent credentials. We researched curriculum. We wrote handbooks, policies, procedures, and then we enrolled our first students. Oh, I remember that first day. I mean, geometry books, algebra books, biology, Homer, Virgil, the catechism, just waiting for our 10 students to crack them open. Such joy, such gratitude to God for setting everything in motion. Such hope for the future, so rosy, so bright. That lasted one day. One day. Before the sun went down, one of our new dads said that his daughter had spent the day lonely and unhappy, and that she was going back to her old school. So that was one day. So this is the One Hope Brunch. For many of you, St. Ambrose satisfies the one hope that you had for a place to raise your child in Christ. But others here are struggling with a different reality. And as an Ambrose mom, an Ambrose staffer, board member, curriculum director, teacher, mostly as a teacher, blah, 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 I've always been very happy to be able to describe our students as virtuous, hardworking, faithful, close-knit, kind, eager to learn. But let's be honest. We're parents here. We can be honest. We also have to use words like bully, cheater, plagiarist, liar. And these are not welcome words. That's not the one hope we had for our school. Or is it? When our kids come home from St. Ambrose Academy, weeping from feelings of rejection or inadequacy or being overwhelmed, or picking up swear words because of another Ambrosian who set a bad example, or if we are aware that it is our own children who are bringing their vices to school, and we fear they're somehow poisoning the well, we can't help but ask ourselves if the vision has disappointed. Because as parents, we know very well that St. Ambrose is not a school of saints. St. Ambrose is a school for saints, in that its mission is to make saints. But Jesus came not only for the righteous, but for sinners. And St. Ambrose Academy is there for both. So when our kids struggle or fail at St. Ambrose, or when they're led astray by other kids who are failing, we parents and faculty will pray for them, help them through counsel, through discipline, and they will find that the chapel door is always open. Plus, on a daily basis, they receive from our teachers the great and eternal reality of the universe, which is God. And if that weren't enough, they have regular opportunities for the medicine of confession and the food of Holy Communion at Mass. So as parents, we have to recognize that part of the reality of what St. Ambrose is. But we also tend to cling to the good days, like that drama dress rehearsal the night before the show opened, when half the cast, including the lead, was down with influenza. And one of them said, "Let's pray the rosary. God won't abandon us." And they do, and he doesn't. Or my son throws his new cross-country team tee in the laundry And after scrubbing off the dirt, Angela, and the sweat, I find Pope Benedict's exhortation, you were not made for comfort, but for greatness. Become great, become saints. Or our junior high religion teacher's Facebook status that reads, and I'll try to sound like Olivia here, today my students and I got very off topic talking about such things as death, heaven, the difference between humans and animals. Then I had one of those I never thought I'd say this moments, as I emphatically proclaimed, it is better to be virtuous than to be a bunny. Or my 12-year-old daughter comes home and tells me about this big debate in history class. Half the class thinks it's stupid that someone would die for honor, but my group thought of Socrates. He died for honor and telling the truth rather than be banished and live. What do you think, Mom? Or one of our juniors, exulting over how they spent half the English class comparing characters from the Iliad, Odyssey, and Aeneid to characters from the Avengers. Paris is so not Loki. And then my son says later, yeah, well, we nailed Odysseus as Iron Man, Aeneas as Batman. They had it all figured out. Or especially when they come home explaining something to me that I could not have explained to someone else. So this is Stephen. Mom, okay, you know about the dual need for revelation? Oh, that would be a big no. So, Revelation tells us all this stuff we couldn't know by ourselves, like the Trinity. We couldn't know that by ourselves, but also the dual need. Stuff we could maybe know ourselves, but might not get it right. So, Aristotle, right, Mom? He is history's smartest mind, right? Yeah. Okay, well, he had an idea similar to original sin. And he got it that virtue causes happiness. He got it that in humans, pain and pleasure are mixed, so that if we take pleasure in bad things, it's the role of justice to sort this out. Now, so Stephen actually said this. I had said to him, Stephen, just tell me something good that happened in school today so I can write it down. So I was like taking notes. So this is what he actually said. So Aristotle gets all this stuff right, Mom, but he doesn't get it that suffering is good for you. He figures suffering makes you unhappy, so it must be bad. But Revelation explains why Aristotle was wrong. That the beggar Lazarus, remember him, goes to heaven, but the rich man doesn't. Lazarus has eternal happiness even though he spent his whole life in poverty. Now Aristotle, the world's smartest man, doesn't get it. So that's why we need dual revelation, Mom, to understand that suffering isn't always bad. Isn't that so cool? Or when you look at our graduates, we've had 46 of them so far, and Patrick and I have had most of them as students, and I can't tell you the number of times they just come bounding up to us on college break, or they email us and say, oh, I'm so grateful for St. Ambrose Academy. So even kids who were earning C's at St. Ambrose, they love to tell us how they can read anything their professor throws at them, how easy they find discussion sections, or how they can write killer papers. So 6 of them have gone on to seminary, 2 of them have gone on to marry in the church, several have gone on to serve our country in the military. So our St. Ambrose graduates are out there living their faith as a light to the world, often as leaders. So as parents, that's the one hope that we live on, that our kids might have a similar bright future. So Cardinal Burke recently wrote that, quote, education is the ultimate key to victory. Education is the ultimate key to victory. Now, our most prominent faculty member, Bishop Robert Morlino, said essentially the same thing last week in his Lenten reflection night for women, that if we hand over the responsibility for educating our children to the state, all will be lost. That's what he said. Maybe that's why he gives us so much of his time, teaching our students, attending our plays, coming to our sporting events. And then Bishop warned us that when Jesus promised that the gates of hell wouldn't prevail against the church, he did not specify the church in the United States. So Catholic schools were introduced in the United States to preserve a Catholic identity in the face of a Protestant public school system that was sometimes hostile to papists. And anyone who reads the news knows that the hostility of today's educational structures to Catholicism is even greater now than it was then. So as adult Catholics who accepted from God the gift of children and the responsibility for rearing them according to God's plan for the family, we parents have to be clear about our priorities. So Jesus' last words were to go out to all the nations and teach the world the good news. And this, of course, is known as the Great Commission. And we have found at St. Ambrose that carrying out the Great Commission is challenging even within the context of a Catholic education. We still have kids who make all these mistakes and who fail and who, bring all this bad stuff to the school. But to try to do this outside the context of a Catholic education, that is an awfully big mountain for parents to climb. Now, not that it can't be climbed. St. Ambrose may not be the best place for every child. Even our board families have pulled kids from St. Ambrose and put them into public education because it was clear that for that kid, that was the best option. Only we as parents can know what's best for each individual child. But when Catholic families in this area ask themselves, Lord, to whom shall we go to carry out the Great Commission for our kids? Our mission is to ensure that one option is St. Ambrose Academy, which gives our children the opportunity to live their Catholic identity to the full. But St. Ambrose faces real challenges in accomplishing this mission. As this academic and fiscal year draws to a close, we have a financial gap to fill, a big one, and we must work to build a strong foundation for next year. So the cost of running the school is about here, so $575,000, okay? What we collect in tuition is down here, $277,000. So that is a $300,000 gap, right, between our tuition income and what it actually costs to run the school. And that mostly goes to compensating our marvelous faculty, some of whom are here today, and who, by the way, are working for way less than they would receive out in the public sector. So thank you, teachers at St. Ambrose Academy. So of that $300,000 that we have to raise this year before the end of the fiscal year, we've raised almost $200,000, and that leaves $100,000 to go before the summer. And that is a big number. It's our highest ever, and there's a couple reasons for this, partly because we've divided the grades and added faculty to keep the small classroom size that's so important for classical education, partly because benefits and wage costs have risen, especially benefits. But it's primarily because, as most of you know, we offer $140,000 in tuition assistance. And that brings us up to what we ask for tuition, but the cost of running the school is actually higher than what the tuition brings in. And we keep our tuition as low as we can because we want families to be able to come here, but we have to have another $160,000 to get from that point up to the top, to what St. Ambrose actually costs. So the fact is that the number of families who actually pay what we could call full freight, that is not just our advertised tuition, but what it actually costs to educate a child at St. Ambrose, that number of families is fewer than a dozen. So I want to lay two challenges before you today. First, I want to challenge each family to take personal responsibility to pull out all the stops in your sacrificial giving to St. Ambrose. If you're paying full tuition already, but you could afford more, you could ask yourself, should I be raising the ante and paying the full cost of what it actually costs St. Ambrose to educate my child? And while I'm at it, should I be throwing in a little bit more for somebody else's child? Now, if you're receiving tuition assistance, but just because of the way the finances have worked out or the lack of emergency situations or whatever, you could actually afford more, you could ask yourselves, is it time to offer more? Now, the second challenge I want to throw at you is to just beg each family here, all of our families, to look outside our direct community of families for additional support. And I cannot stress this enough. It might sound difficult because, after all, how many people out there are willing to put skin in the game for a school that their own children never attended? Well, we have found, surprisingly, that people really actually are interested. Our top non-family donors are often older people who have raised their own children, and they choose to support us because they notice something special about our kids, how they hold on to the faith, how active they are in parish life, how they're discerning their vocations, how they're the future of the church. And this inspires older people, even those outside our direct community. So our job as families is to talk to those people. to invite them on a tour or a faculty lecture, to put them in touch with our development staff. And I talk to my dentist, my financial guy, my insurance guy. I talk to all of them. I hand them do you want to write a check to the benefit dinner? If every one of us did that with all of the professional people that we pay money for their services, we could start getting those business sponsorships to grow. So in the context, though, of talking about older people, this is not in my talk because this just happened this morning, so not even our development director knows this. At Mass this morning, I had parents that Laura and I had met with last week, not parents, sorry, an older couple who has no kids at our school that Laura and I had met with a couple of weeks ago come up and tell me they wanted to fund an entire scholarship for St. Ambrose. So. Yeah, so that's great. So let's all go out there and do this. And I'm going to end with two big announcements. First, we have, I guess I need Kim for this, right? We have a new website. So Kim's going to make it so we can take a look here. So in days gone by, a company or an organization, they just needed a website, any old website, to look legit. So those days have passed. So this website, do I need to? Yeah, I guess, yeah. This website will be easy to update, easy to keep information organized. Now, there are families here today who first heard about our school by stumbling onto our website. Now, if our cranky old webpage could bring people into our school, how many more are going to be able to be brought in by this beautiful site? So go home and explore it, and next week we will have the parent login and password information that you need to log in, just as you've done in the past. So the second big announcement is that you probably, like me, all get a daily earful from your kids on how crowded it's getting at St. Thomas. Where are they supposed to stash their boots? Where do they put their textbooks? Where to stick the gym bag? Well, that's because we've been growing at a steady rate of about 15% a year. This year, it was a scramble to find even adequate classroom space. Well, thanks to St. Thomas Aquinas, we are working with the parish to combine rooms to create larger classrooms. And this is going to take us from 3 available large classrooms to 6 in the religious education wing. And this allows us to accommodate anticipated enrollment up to the year 2016. Now, this is huge. You parents may not quite realize how huge this is because you don't sit in these agonizing planning meetings trying to figure out where on God's green earth are we going to put all these children. But so this is spectacular news, and we are continuing to investigate options for what happens then. But please take every opportunity that you can to thank the good people at St. Thomas Aquinas for their generosity to our children. It is truly hard to imagine where we would have been without them all these years. And in the meantime, please just continue to pray hard for our school. I'm reading the 3 Ages of the Interior Life for Lent, and I just read this little segment on prayer. Where he said, prayer is the natural way through which God wills to give us grace. That is, to help us. He knows what we need, but one way that we understand our place in the universe is by asking him, rather than just expecting that our needs will magically be met. So please pray. Please let Kim and Laura's words today fire up your hearts to take up the mission of giving and begging for St. Ambrose Academy. And just in case nobody else says it today, guess what Pope Francis tweeted yesterday? Let us thank all those who teach in Catholic schools. Educating is an act of love. It is like giving life. So St. Ambrose, pray for us.